KP Video News, y'all. KP Video News, y'all. KP Video News, y'all. Right. KP.
That's right. It's KP's Video News, y'all. Coming to you today on a serious note. Today is the 100th anniversary of the start of the Tulsa race massacre that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, May 31st, and it lasted through June 1st, 1921. And this situation happened when you had mobs of white residents, many of them deputized and given weapons by city officials, attacked black residents and businesses of the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, alternatively known as the Black Wall Street Massacre, the Greenwood Massacre, the Tulsa Massacre, or the Tulsa Race Riot. It marks one of the single worst incidents of racial violence in American history. The attack, carried out on the ground and from private aircraft, destroyed more than 35 square blocks of the district, at that time the wealthiest black community in the United States, known as the Black Wall Street. And more than 800 people were admitted to hospitals. As many as 6,000 black residents were interned in large facilities. So interned basically means they was locked up, many of them for several days. An Oklahoma Bureau of Vital Statistics originally recorded 36 dead. 2001 State Commission examination of events was able to confirm 39 dead, 26 black, 16 white, 13 white, based on contemporary autopsy reports, death certificates, and other records. The commission gave several estimates ranging from 75 to 300 people dead. Now, the Oklahoma Bureau, like I said, officially they recorded 36 people dead, but the estimated numbers could possibly be as high as 300 dead, maybe more. People that might have escaped, got away, and might have died a week later in a whole nother neighborhood, maybe even a whole nother state. So, the massacre began during Memorial Day weekend, 100 years ago this weekend, after 19-year-old Dick Rowland, a black shoe shiner, was accused of assaulting Sarah Page, the 17-year-old white elevator operator of the nearby Drexel building. He was taken into custody after the arrest. Rumors spread through the city that Rowland was to be lynched. Upon hearing reports that the mob of hundreds of white men had gathered around the jail where Rowland was being kept, a group of 75 black men, some of whom were armed, arrived at the jail in order to ensure Rowland would not be lynched. The sheriff persuaded the group to leave the jail, assuring them that he had the situation under control. As the group was leaving the premises, complying with the sheriff's request, a member of the mob of white men allegedly attempted to disarm one black man. A shot was fired, and then, according to reports of the sheriff, all hell broke loose. At the end of the firefight, 12 people were dead, 10 white and 2 black. As the news of the death spread throughout the city, mob violence exploded. White rioters rampaged through the black neighborhood that night and morning, killing men and burning and looting stores and homes. Around noon on June 1st, the Oklahoma National Guard imposed martial law, effectively ending the massacre. About 10,000 black people were left homeless, and property damage amounted to more than $1.5 million in real estate and $750,000 in personal property, equivalent to $32.65 million in today's money. Many survivors left Tulsa, while black and white residents who stayed in the city kept silent about the terror, violence, and resulting losses for decades. The massacre was largely omitted from local, state, and national histories and was not mentioned in any history book. In 1996, 75 years after the massacre, a bipartisan group of state legislature authorized formation of Oklahoma Commission to study the Tulsa race riot 1921. The commission's final report, published in 2001, states that the city had conspired with the mob of white citizens against black citizens. It recommended a program of reparations to survivors and their descendants. The state passed legislation in order to establish scholarships for the descendants of survivors, encourage the economic development of Greenwood, and develop a park in memory of the victims of the massacre in Tulsa. The park was dedicated in 2010. In 2020, the massacre became part of the Oklahoma school curriculum. So this whole situation, man, started over an alleged assault. And actually, the girl that was stated that she had got assaulted never pressed any charges, and never really stated. All she said was that he touched her on her arm. But when you go back down and you find out the history of what actually happened, the guy basically stumbled, and in order to try to catch his balance, touched her on her arm. So I guess she she flinched or whatever, and then took it, told somebody, well, the black guy touched me on my arm. They all of a sudden got, what? A black man touched you? And they went crazy. They went nuts. And basically had 10,000 black people were left homeless, property damaged, in today's equivalent of $32 million, that has not ever been replaced, has never been, people have never been given anything. So I said, you got a little memorial park and a couple of scholarships. Okay, I'm telling you, man, this kind of stuff is it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just crazy to me. And you got people, man, that go through the motions, and they're they're just oblivious to a lot of this history that has gone on in the United States. And the thing that makes it so bad is that now you have the Republicans that are in office right now that are basically trying to rewrite history and omit and eliminate anything that had to do with slavery from the history books. And that's what they're working on right now, trying to remove that part of the history, any part of history that makes them look bad. It tells the truth about all the skullduggery and things that they've done. They're trying to eliminate from the history books. So, even people in Hollywood have been trying to at least try to halfway try to tell some parts of the truth of this country. And it was a TV show called The Watchmen, and they got like a 3-minute scene of destruction and terror as a racist mob destroys a black town. Civilians are shot, homes are bombed from planes overhead, and the stores are set on fire. While The Watchmen is fictional, that was a fictional with Regina King as the star of the show. I think it had who was that? It wasn't Ben Vereen. Who was that played her father, her grandfather? I can't remember his name now. Anyway, the story is true. It's a true story. They use a true story and they tied it in. You have to watch that movie, that series, Watchmen, and I believe it's on HBO. You can probably find it on Netflix. Man, it's pretty good. I watched it. They only had one season, and I hope they're working on the second season. And so I said, this really happened. The series just put visuals to what it must have been like based on eyewitness accounts. And it has a guy named Phil Armstrong, the project manager of a commission charged with commemorating the 100th anniversary of one of the largest racial massacres in American history. a 2-day rampage by a white mob that devastated the all-black community of Greenwood, Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And like I said, 1921, Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission is also guiding force behind Greenwood Rising, an interactive history center scheduled to be open later this year. So they're going to open up a history center, created in partnership with local projects. And, you know, Greenwood Rising will tell the story of the historical neighborhood before, during, and after the carnage. And a preview of the site suggests that visitors are in for an emotional journey. Much of the information will likely be new to them. Until recently, it was possible to visit Tulsa and remain unaware of the looting, burning, and killing that began on the 31st of May 1921. And so, you know, it's, you know, you go there now and you would, you know, people don't talk about it. Like I said, they didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about it for years. Right now in this nation, there's a lot of talk about black trauma and focusing on stories of oppression versus telling the whole story. Says Mensa, who says it was equally important for all involved to show black joy at times and to show the resiliency, the work ethic, and the communal spirit, and to get the visitor to contact with that. So they're supposed to open this up soon, and I really truly wanted to be in Tulsa this weekend, but I was not able to make it, you know. And but they're going to build this museum, and I want to get a chance one day to go to visit this museum, and maybe take my, you know, my kids, grandkids, or whatever, so we can go to this. And but you know, back to the Black Wall Street. Before the massacre happened, Greenwood was a place of economic opportunities with theaters, grocery stores, banks, confectionaries, restaurants lining its main street, dubbed the Black Wall Street. By 1880, there were 30 all-black towns in Oklahoma. They actually began having discussions with the government to declare Oklahoma to be an all-black state. The Black Wall Street moniker derives from a comment made by Booker T. Washington on the proliferation of black Oklahoma towns, Muskogee, Langston, Boley among them, a year before Greenwood was established. On the other side of the track from downtown Tulsa, Greenwood was founded on segregationist beliefs and cemented with Jim Crow laws. But while racist ideals set the soil, black businesses did the planning, and success quickly took root. By 1921, an established 12,000 African Americans were living within the 35 square blocks of the neighborhood. Homes and businesses were all owned and operated by black people. But over the course of a few days in 1921, it all disappeared. Most of the homes were destroyed, along with dozens of buildings, including churches. An estimated 300 people were killed. And when it was over, the black community was financially and physically decimated. Since the massacre was labeled a riot at the time, insurance claims were denied, and courts dismissed all cases without hearings or reviews. So the insurance companies was in on it too. They refused to pay. And the only silver lining was that legal attempts to force families to adhere to newly created expensive building regulations were thwarted by an unprecedented Oklahoma State Supreme Court decision. And where the resiliency shines through, the community rose like a phoenix from the ashes within 5 years. And with the support of black communities across the country, Greenwood was able to host delegates from the 1926 National Chamber of Commerce, and by 1943, the economic activity of the area doubled. It's an incredible American story. They stay, but they built it back bigger than it was the first time. So now you got the third wave, urban renewal programs in the later decades, and eventually gentrification continued to change the community makeup. Today, the neighborhood includes Greenwood Cultural Center, whose mission is to preserve African American heritage in the area and promote cultural exchange. The center is partnering with the Gathering Place Park and the Tulsa Riverfront this summer to co-host Kinsley African American Art Collection, one of the largest collections of historical art and artifacts of its kind. So here we go, folks. You know, they're trying to, you know, rebuild. In the process of you trying to rebuild and get all the things back, what happens when these people see something that's like a diamond in the rough? Gentrification. All right, folks, I'm gonna move on to this next little small segment, and this is another piece of Black history. It's about Black people inventing Memorial Day. And so Black people, Memorial Day was formerly known as Decoration Day, was originally started by a group of African Americans, and mainly credible historians have confirmed that the popular holiday was in fact initially an event held by newly liberated blacks in Charleston, South Carolina. It happened on May 1st, 1865, right after the Civil War ended. Thousands of newly freed slaves and regiments of the U.S. colored troops gathered to march around a Confederate Army prison camp and honor the unnamed fallen Union soldiers who fought for their freedom. Also in attendance were thousands of Black women and children who reportedly sang hymns and carried flowers, wreaths, and crosses. And then the holiday was whitewashed. Historian David Blight said in his book that years later, African Americans were suddenly erased from the story by white Democrats after regaining control of the state politics at the end of Reconstruction. Yes, that's right. A day that was originally celebrated Black liberation was now being utilized for white supremacy, and it apparently all started from an 1865 article that was published in the Charleston Daily Courier that tried to discredit the facts. After discovering the news article, many historians have agreed that after being freed, one of the first things that this group of African Americans did was gather to pay tribute to those who died while fighting for freedom. Sadly, you don't hear that part of the story. According to the liberationschool.org, the spirit of the first Decoration Day, the struggle for Black liberation, and the fight against racism was unfortunately being whitewashed from history and has been changed by Democrats, Southern Democrats, to Memorial Day. That's why you have the name Memorial Day. And the original day, it was originally named Decoration Day, and it was Christian May 1st, 1865, right after the Civil War ended, by a group of African Americans, and they're the ones that created and started it. As usual, some people came along, whitewashed it, erased the whole Black element, and changed it into a celebration of white troops. Oh boy, stuff like this goes on and on and on and on and on. It happens all the time. So, you know, like I said, right now the Republicans in D.C. are trying to pass a law that's going to rewrite history, and it'll totally eliminate any parts of slavery from the history books, from the history books in the public schools. So, you know, hey, it might be a real good thing to continue this homeschooling so you can get your kids a real education and not some watered down, whitewashed education, and have your kids going to school for 12 years and they graduating from high school and they're dummies. They don't know the first thing about practical applications. They don't know the first thing about anything about trying to start a business or create their own businesses. They're just teaching you how to become a worker, and they never try to teach you how to become self-sufficient. So you have these things you have to teach your kids yourself, and it's the best thing going is to continue to homeschool your kids, man. Get them out of the public school system. If you can't afford it, send them to private schools where they're going to learn something entirely different. You know, Entirely different. The truth.
KP Video News, y'all.
Happy Decoration Day. Happy Decoration Day.
KP Video News, y'all.
Tulsa Massacre.
Video News, y'all.
Rest in peace, brothers. Peace.
Right. KP